Last week we asked, would you support the use of additional armed security officers in our schools? Lots and lots of response to this. A whopping 94% of you said more armed security officers is a good thing. And as always, we thank you for sharing. There's a growing need in Texas for qualified therapists and social workers, even more so as a greater push is made to identify at-risk young people in our schools now. But we've discovered hundreds of trained and qualified people who can't even begin filling that need because our state government is so far behind getting them their license to work. As our Jody Barr found out, state lawmakers couldn't make the changes necessary to fix the problem.
No results matched. It's not there.
Deanna Dotson's waited.
So I've just been calling and sending them emails.
And waited.
Right now it's showing there's nothing.
For 6 months, she's tried to get a single piece of paper from the state's social worker licensing office. And 6 months in.
Well, I was hoping it was going to be a quick process, but unfortunately, I'm just twirling my thumbs and waiting.
Dotson holds a master's in social work. She applied to the Texas Health and Human Services Commission for her license in November, and still nothing.
And I called them in December just to follow up and check on it, and they told me they didn't receive my application, so I had to resend it.
So had you not called, you could have been sitting here today with no movement.
Dotson's story is a familiar one for social worker and therapist graduates in Texas, and lots of them. Records show in the last 5 years, nearly 5,500 license applications in a pending status.
This has resulted in a licensing process mired by bureaucratic red tape, and as a result, licensing of qualified mental health care providers is delayed at a time that Texas is facing a significant shortage.
In 2016, lawmakers assessed the mental health boards under the state's sunset review process.
It doesn't work.
A process that looks at the effectiveness of state agencies. Lawmakers weren't happy with the findings.
There's something systemically wrong with the way you do business.
The review found the Department of State Health Services didn't do anything about the massive backlogs in licensing for more than 5 years. So lawmakers wrote a bill that would strip the licensing unit from that agency. The bill never made it to the House floor for a vote last session. In September, the state moved the licensing unit to Health and Human Services, but lawmakers were still reeling over the backlog at this meeting last month.
There's over 50,000 licenses that have been stalled and dragged out for years.
And it basically became a downhill slide, and it became, as things got worse, they got worse really quick.
Will Francis represents Texas's licensed social workers. He says his group's been telling the state about the problems inside the licensing unit for years.
Ultimately, it's really concerning that all of these numbers did not raise more red flags at the state level. Again, the legislature only knows what the state agencies tell them. And if the state agencies are not saying, hold on here, we have major backlogs, then ultimately they can't fix that.
Francis argues this agency is one of the main causes of the state's mental health worker shortage. If you search the Health and Human Services Job Bank today, you'll see 140 open positions there. When we checked 1 month ago, there were 615 pending license applications. People lined up and ready to go to work, except they can't get the state to process their license application.
We want to apologize for these backlogs.
Health and Human Services bosses were back before the Sunset Commission last month. David Constrom took over the licensing unit in September.
How did it get so bad?
You know, having taken over the program in September, I really couldn't speculate on exactly what transpired in the past as to how it got as backlogged as it is.
Since we interviewed Costron 1 month ago, the agency says it's cut the pending application backlog from 615 to 75 pending today. But Deanna Dotson is still waiting. We asked the man in charge about her 6-month wait for Health and Human Services to schedule her licensing exam.
What do you think that's doing to people like her?
You know, that's unfortunate that she had to wait that long, and my apologies directly to her, but we're working to minimize that so that future applicants that submit their applications don't go through that same experience.
That is Jody Barr in Austin. Stick around. We're coming right back with a look at the week ahead.